until a motherfucker break down or die, it's like, it makes sense now.
But you gave her more things to do because you're feeling pressure about your crappy long-time record anniversary?
English, there's a saying, and it says, once you hit rock bottom, the only way is up. Rock bottom just seems to keep getting more and more rock bottom.
What annoyed me, guys, is this video was actually complete clickbait. He did not have any real footage of the crash and was just basically clickbaited and then just talked about Kobe's death throughout the whole video.
What is the long-term effect of too much information? One of the effects is the need to be first, not even to be true anymore. So what a responsibility you all have to tell the truth, not just to be first, but to tell the truth. We live in a society now where it's just first. Who cares? Get it out there. We don't care who it hurts. We don't care who we destroy. We don't care if it's true. Just say it, sell it.
On this channel, I've discussed the NBA media in a very negative connotation, whether it's them talking about a certain player or team and using what they say to turn a narrative about certain players or teams. One of the primary examples I've given is about the Phoenix Suns. They're the best team in basketball right now, and for some reason the NBA media does not discuss them and they only have negative things to say most of the time. But you guys know this, a lot of people know this. However, there's a side of the NBA media that doesn't get talked about, and quite frankly, I haven't discussed it on my channel. I wanted to make this to show that the NBA media might be bad to a certain point, but there's a lot more worse of things that we don't even know about. I am one person on this channel. I don't have a team, I don't have any sources, so all of these things are public knowledge. I want to be oblivious to the situation and say that the NBA media is just a bunch of people talking basketball. Quite frankly, it's not that, and I think a lot of people have started to pick up on some things. In this documentary, I plan to talk about the dark side of the NBA media and the things that a whole lot of people won't discuss, whether it's out of fear or just of knowledge. Everything on here that I'm going to be listing is 100% facts and they can be proven, which leads me to our first topic.
And so, free agency has been tough, because I feel like in some ways the NBA is kind of giving up on me.
10 years ago, Jeremy Lin had the 12 best games that you've ever seen from a player in a stretch called Linsanity. If you experienced it, you knew that it was one of the craziest things you were seeing, and you had to tune into every single Knicks game to watch it happen. It seemed like no one was able to stop him. In those 12 games, he would average 22 points per game and about 8 assists while leading his team to a 7-game win streak. Even if you weren't alive to see it or you just weren't watching basketball back then, you've at least heard about it before. And the one question I always ask about Linsanity is, why did it have to end so abruptly? It's like he turned into this amazing player for 12 games and all of a sudden he just disappeared out of nowhere. Some people have argued the death of Linsanity was because of the Miami Heat game where they faced the Big Three and Jeremy Lin was shut down. And while he had some okay games following that, he would have a meniscus injury which would end his season. Following that season, Jeremy Lin would go on to be a restricted free agent. So if you don't know, that means that a team can offer him a contract. However, the original team that you're a restricted free agent to can match that offer and you'll be forced to sign with them. And for a 4-year, $28 million deal, you think the Knicks would take it, right? Well, no, because the Knicks would go on to let Lin walk. Right after Lin signed this contract, some things came out that were very interesting to say the least. Rumors of Carmelo Anthony interfering, saying that he didn't want to have Jeremy Lin possibly replace him as the #1 option. To think that New York Carmelo could have been replaced by Jeremy Lin is probably now laughable, but we have to remember how good that Linsanity run was and the potential that he had. Hindsight is 2020, however, we didn't know how Jeremy Lin was going to develop following the next season. And when you think about it, when Carmelo Anthony returned from injury, Jeremy Lin and Linsanity kind of just stopped. As much as Carmelo Anthony is a talented player, he's a douchebag. So it wouldn't shock me if this was true. A lot of you probably do know this part where Jeremy Lin would play for the Rockets and then he would inevitably become a journeyman, and by 2019 he'd be out the NBA. Now what's so puzzling to me is that Jeremy Lin is 33 and at the time of that speech he was about 30. He's an NBA vet that has a lot of experience, so why would no team want him? I'm not saying he was still Linsanity, but he was still a valuable role player that again brought veteran leadership. Well, let's look at the facts, as 0.4% of players in the NBA are Asian, and I would like to assume that over the years the numbers numbers have kind of started to go up because of representation. So I can't even imagine what the number of Asian players was back when Jeremy Lin was playing for the Knicks. So it honestly makes you think, did Jeremy Lin's race have something to do with him not being wanted by any NBA team? He had a run in the G League for the Warriors G League team, but again, no team wanted him. It wouldn't be a hot take to say that maybe the NBA just didn't want Jeremy Lin because of his race. Let's not forget that Jeremy Lin almost didn't make the NBA because of his race. Asian players weren't generally known for playing in the NBA, so a lot of NBA scouts kind of saw that as a weakness. Jeremy Lin has came out and said multiple times that he's dealt with racism on and off the court. So it wouldn't shock me if this is one of the reasons why Jeremy Lin isn't playing in the NBA anymore. And you might be saying, okay, but what does this have to do with the NBA media? Isn't this just an NBA thing as a whole? Well, as I said in the intro, the NBA media controls narratives about players and teams. The NBA media obviously discussed Linsanity, but after that, they completely forgot about him. I'm obviously not saying he should have been the topic of all sports shows, even though Linsanity was finished, but still. However, with all the racism in NBA media, it wouldn't shock me if this had something to do with it. You would think that racism is something that would not be in the NBA and that basketball can be an escape so we don't have to deal with that. Unfortunately, no matter what you're in, whether it's a general work environment, sports, even content creation, racism is still a thing. It's unfortunate, but it's the truth. Kind of like after Derrick Rose dropped 50 points and Rachel Nichols tried to start a narrative, bringing up an old case that he wasn't even found guilty of.
That is incredible. However, there is also the absolute fact that 2 years ago, Rose was accused of participating in a gang rape. A civil trial found him not liable, but a lot of Rose's own testimony was troubling.
I'd like to start off by saying I understand that this type of stuff does happen. However, Derrick Rose was not guilty. Also, his 50-point performance and this accusation that came out about him 2 years ago have nothing to do with each other. The correlation is non-existent. She tried to push a narrative saying that, oh, well, a lot of people were saying that this trial was something that he had to deal with, and it's just cringe to me that a lot of people are taking his side and saying that this was something that Derrick Rose had to go through. I think for any influencer, athlete, or high status person that has to deal with those accusations, it's definitely a process, especially if you're not guilty, because people even bring it up when you didn't even do anything. That's why a lot of people get so upset when they hear these accusations, because if it's not true, it can tarnish a person's career and everything they've ever worked for. If he was guilty, I could understand you try to bring it up. I still wouldn't think it's right, but you do as you wish. However, for no reason that I am yet to still understand, you bring up this accusation right after he has a 50-point game. Again, there was no correlation between the two incidents, and you tried to remind people of this trial when again, Rose was innocent. When I first saw this, I thought, okay, this has to be like a Kanye moment, right? Unscripted, and she had no idea what was gonna happen until she just started to bring it up. Maybe she had it planned, but she didn't tell anyone. Well, that was until I started to see that ESPN was posting tweets and news articles on the screen when she was talking about it. So the people working at ESPN manually had to find those articles and put them on the screen and show pictures of him at the trial. What I don't understand is, why would you try to target Derrick Rose? He's one of the nicest players that we've ever seen. I've never heard anyone say that I hate Derrick Rose. I've only heard positive things about him. I then thought, you know what, is it even Rachel Nichols' fault? Maybe she's just the messenger saying this. Maybe she doesn't even want to bring it up. But let's not forget, like, Rachel Nichols doesn't have a past.
Because guess what that was cleared away for? For Maria to do the hosting for it. Yeah. So, I have declined. I don't know what their next move is, but they are feeling pressure because of all of that. And, I'm trying to figure out, like, how to just, my thing is that I wish Maria Taylor all the success in the world. She covers football, she covers basketball. If you need to give her more things to do because you're feeling pressure about your crappy long-time record on diversity, which, by the way, I myself know personally from the female side of it, go for it. Just find it somewhere else. Like, you're not gonna find it with me.
I'm sure you guys saw this clip. It came right before the NBA Finals, which obviously sent ESPN in a frenzy and they had no idea what to do, but she would be fired by ESPN. Now, what she said about Mariah Taylor is so damn disrespectful. Some people thought that maybe them firing Rachel Nichols was too overboard and that they were overreacting about the situation. However, to discredit someone's career and just say that, oh, the reason why they're getting these opportunities and not me is because of their race. It's laughable at this point. It makes no sense to me why you would even say something like this. Mind you, these are both analysts. They've both worked with each other, so it just goes to show how fake these people are. It's like the saying that people want to see you eat, just not more than them. As long as you're a step below your friend, they're perfectly fine with it. However, when you pass them in success, it becomes a problem. To be fair, I think a lot of the people that work in the NBA media industry are fake. And maybe Mariah Taylor is fake. We don't know. We haven't seen any evidence of it. However, again, to discredit her career like that is bullshit. And I've tuned in a little bit to see the new show with Mariah Taylor and stuff like that. And I gotta say, I'm very impressed with what she's been able to do, and she's good at her job. I don't see it as, oh, a black woman getting an opportunity because of her race. I see it as a black woman getting this opportunity because of her skill set and what she brings. So it does ask the question, was Rachel Nichols trying to push a narrative because of racism, or did we take this out of context and maybe she was just the messenger when it came to talking about the Derrick Rose thing? With her basically gone and we haven't heard much from her in the past year, it doesn't seem like we're ever going to hear the full story unless she comes out and speaks her truth. The next topic I want to discuss is very controversial, but if we're going to talk about racism in the NBA media, I think we need to talk about this.
The NBA loves China. So when Enes Kanter Freedom started criticizing the Chinese Communist Party, it was only a matter of time.
For a couple of years now, Enes Kanter has been on this movement basically against China with all the stuff they do, and it's an interesting thing to say the least. I'm not into politics the most, I'm not the most political savvy person, but this is how the story essentially goes. Enes Freedom Kanter was born in Turkey. However, after he started out speaking about the Turkey president, the president of Turkey wasn't too happy, and he said that if Enes was to ever return, then he would be arrested. At one point, Kanter's father was actually in prison for a while, however, he has been released. However, Enes would start a new movement talking about genocide in China, bringing up the concentration camps and things of that nature. I'm gonna have to repeat myself, but again, I'm not the most political savvy person. However, here's what I'm gonna say. I agree with his points and the stuff he's saying. The only thing I didn't like, however, was the way he went about it by disrespecting guys like LeBron and Jordan and every single person to ever exist. Was he doing it for attention so that the point he wanted to get across would be seen? Maybe. However, if we now go to the NBA trade deadline, which wasn't that long ago, we can see that Kanter was traded to the Rockets, however, he was waived. Some people have given speculation that Enes Kanter is not on the team because he was outspoken of China, and China and NBA go together. Some people have asked the question, was Enes Kanter blackballed from the NBA? When it comes to this argument, some people say, oh, well, have you seen Enes Kanter play basketball? He's not that good. Even if you look at his stats, you can see he's barely averaging 4 and 4. However, when you don't get that many opportunities to play in a season, how are you going to prove to people that you're good? You can't put up stats or you can't prove yourself if you're not getting the minutes. It's just that simple. Now, some people have compared this to Colin Kaepernick, and while I'm not exactly sure if it's at the lengths of Kaepernick, both men spoke out about a political issue and now they're both not playing in their respected leagues. When I hear people talk about Enes Kanter and the whole situation, I see it from just a negative connotation. Not the fact that he's standing up for what he believes, it's just that, oh, he's just trying to do this for attention and he's crazy. We brought up the fact that he took shots at LeBron James and you said, oh, this is absolutely crazy. However, what you don't mention is why he did. Like I said, I didn't agree with him attacking every single person that ever exists in the NBA. However, he made valid points. And I'm sure you could put Enes Kanter on any NBA team and he'd be a good veteran role player that could do well. But from the looks of it, I wouldn't be surprised if he never plays another game of basketball.
Good afternoon from New York. We're coming on the air with breaking news, very sad news to tell the sports world. The LA Times is reporting that retired Los Angeles Lakers basketball star Kobe Bryant has been killed in a helicopter crash.
Kobe Bryant's death is one of those things that you remember exactly where you were when it happened. You could recall everything that happened that day and you could play it back in your head crystal clear. I think it was the first time that I've ever seen in the NBA community where everyone came together as a whole and we mourned the loss. It didn't matter what your favorite team was, we were all sad about this and we can all take a moment and just pray for his family. It was arguably the saddest moment in NBA history. However, it didn't take long for a problem to emerge.
So you guys are probably thinking, alright, it's just video footage of the helicopter crash. But what annoyed me, guys, is this video was actually complete clickbait. He did not have any real footage of the crash and was just basically clickbaited and then just talked about Kobe's death throughout the whole video.
Fly Mike is a popular NBA YouTuber that is relatively known for breaking the news. However, right around this time when Kobe died, there was a possibility that his career could have also died. Almost everyone in the community went at him, and rightfully so. He made a really big mistake. Now, a lot of you might be saying, okay, but Fly Mike is a YouTuber. What does he have to do with the NBA media? Well, at the beginning of this, I showed a clip from an interview with Denzel Washington.
What is the long-term effect of too much information? One of the effects is the need to be first, not even to be true anymore.
While many people were very quick to call out Flight Mike and say all these terrible things about him, I don't think he's a terrible person. Obviously, I don't agree with what he did, and Mike himself has came out and said that he didn't like what he did as well. But I don't think Mike just woke him and said, you know what, you have to be the first to get a story out. We've seen the NBA media put out stories that they don't exactly know the full context of. A general rule of thumb when it comes to succeeding at everything is you either have to be the first, the best, or different. And Mike was just releasing a story first while giving his own twist. Mike has justified him putting in the footage and putting the clickbait titles saying that he just had to get it out first. And it would make sense because the NBA media glorifies getting a story out first, even if they don't have the 100% facts and details. I mean, Mike himself has said that he is meant to bring the news and that's what his channel is about, kind of like some NBA analysts and some NBA media sources. So you don't think he thought of just like the NBA media, he has to get out a story as quick as possible? Now, Mike has moved on from this incident and I'm glad, and it seems like his channel is doing better than ever. Unfortunately, that's not the only bad thing that the media did when it came to Kobe Bryant's death.
What do you see from LeBron here in this 17th season? Because there are people who say that he should be ahead in the MVP race just because of what he's doing, where he's doing it, and now, of course, with the burden with everything that happened with that team and Kobe Bryant.
I think LeBron, he's 35 years old, year 17. He has navigated a China controversy and maybe the biggest tragedy in the history of the NBA this season. That's extra stuff that, you know, quite frankly, Giannis is not going through.
I don't think that a death is something that only one person can go through, especially if you were someone that was as popular as Kobe Bryant. Every single person in the NBA world mourned the loss of Kobe, and that's something we all went through. We're not just gonna assign someone dying and say, oh, the reason why LeBron should win MVP is because he's dealing with this loss, not Giannis. Anyone can mourn any loss, and that's just a fact. For example, Taylor Hawkins, who is a drummer of the Foo Fighters, just recently died the other day. I don't know him, I've never met him before, however, I like the Foo Fighters and I like Taylor, and it really sucked that he died and I was really sad about it. We can't just say, oh, only the Foo Fighters or only Dave Grohl or only this person or that person can deal with this death. That's not how that works. So for you to try to push a LeBron James MVP narrative just because of the death of Kobe Bryant is so fucking insane to me. We're at the point now where we're using dead people to push an MVP narrative. ESPN, where the fuck did y'all go? To use someone to push your agenda is insane to me, and I don't understand how y'all can just do something like that. It's incredibly disrespectful, and I think ESPN knows they messed up because the original clip from ESPN is actually deleted. I had to get this from someone else. However, ESPN never apologized for this, Rachel Nichols never apologized for this, and nor did the other guy. If they make a mistake, let's just delete it and pretend like it never happened. In fact, so far, everything I've brought up in this video, no one has ever apologized for except the Rachel Nichols and Mariah Taylor thing. To be fair, everyone in the world, including the mainstream media, was coming at her, so it was kind of forced that she had to apologize. However, her apology did not seem sincere. I think she only apologized because she got caught and it was a PR move. What's sad is that this is a common theme of people in general that are in power. They make a mistake and they just try to erase it and pretend like it never happened. So unfortunately, it really does suck that arguably the biggest tragedy in NBA history revolves someone's career almost ending because the NBA media has glorified early reporting, which actually had people thinking that Rick Fox was on the helicopter, and he had people spam calling him to see if he was alive. And then you have people trying to push a LeBron James MVP narrative and saying that, oh, Giannis didn't have to mourn through a death of a top NBA player. Only LeBron James can go through this. This isn't a tragedy for none of you other guys. It's honestly disgusting to see what the NBA media is willing to do to push a narrative.
Adam Silver was talking about anxiety and depression. You just don't, I feel like it's an older generation thing where they equate happiness to the amount of money that you make. And what happens with that is when he says things like that, that automatically challenges people opening up to talk about some of the things that is, driving them to whatever those issues are in their life.
I've said this before and people don't believe me, but I truly don't think the NBA media cares when they tear down a player and practically ruin his life. Sure, maybe they haven't hit rock bottom like it seems Michael Beasley might be at, or Jeremy Lin, who we talked about earlier on in this documentary. However, what about a guy like Kyrie Irving, who only did not make the NBA 75, he also had so many people coming at him, including from the media, people ripping him for a decision he made. Whatever your stance is on Kyrie, whether you think he should have got the shot or not, it's really irrelevant. And that's what the NBA 75 should be. We all know Kyrie Irving is a better player all time than Damian Lillard, and that he's one of the greatest point guards of all time. When it comes to this Kyrie Irving situation, I like to compare it to Terrell Owens. Owens was a top receiver in the NFL for a long period of time, and some people would argue he's a top 5 receiver all time in the NFL. Now, while Owens was just a douchebag to his teammates and he was a locker room drama and he didn't like the media, it took a while for Terrell Owens to make the NFL Hall of Fame because the media did not like them and they can control that type of stuff. It's the same thing I said when Kyrie Irving didn't make the NBA 75. I said, I know why he didn't make it, it's bullshit, but what can you do? When you have Stephen A. Smith constantly talking about Kyrie in a negative connotation, then come to find out he has a vote in the NBA 75, it's not a good feeling. And since we're on the topic of Stephen A. Smith also said that Ben Simmons might have been faking his mental health. I made a video about that weeks ago, and everything I said in there, I stand by it. If you haven't seen the video, it's called like Stephen A. Smith is the biggest hypocrite in the NBA media. But just real quickly to sum up that segment in that video, I basically just talked about how Stephen A. Smith said that Ben Simmons was faking his mental health because there was clips of Ben Simmons at the game just laughing and smiling and trying to enjoy himself. And as someone that has gone through mental health struggles, it really made me mad and annoyed because, again, I stand by the claim when I say the NBA media doesn't care about its players and what they go through. As soon as you hit rock bottom or you're climbing towards that path, they don't care and they're gonna throw you to the side. What about Zion Williamson, who was supposed to be the #1 prospect and arguably could be an all-time great? Oh, that didn't work out? Okay, we're just gonna mock him on national television and just make fun of his weight. We don't know what these players go through. We don't know the things they have to deal with behind the scenes that we're never gonna understand. So when Michael Beasley did that interview and he talked about players not being cared about when they're going through something and we're saying, oh, they're crazy and stuff like that, he's right. We don't care. We just ignore it and act like nothing happened until bam, they snap and we see, oh, they're crazy. What are they talking about? We should just talk about them in a negative connotation and not hear what they have to say. The media doesn't care about your mental health or your well-being as an NBA player. As long as you're bringing in revenue, they have no sympathy for you, and most of them I feel like have robot tendencies. And you might laugh at that and say, bro, what robot tendencies? But hear me out. When it comes to TV and you get to that point of success, there's not that many legitimate people that you're gonna meet. Most of these dudes show a character on these shows or their social medias, and off camera they're a completely different person. And then when we start to see these different sides of people, like Rachel Nichols and the things she said about Mariah Taylor, we start to understand these people are not good at all. These are the same analysts, these are the same reporters and media people in general that we're letting control narratives about players. Another example I can give is Markelle Fultz, someone that was hyped up to be one of the best prospects, and unfortunately he just hasn't been that. So instead we mock him and just pretend like he wasn't supposed to be this #1 guy. Even Ben Simmons, who everyone and their mom eviscerated, saying, oh, all you gotta do is just shoot a jump shot. You and me and everyone else watching this video will never understand what Ben Simmons went through during that time. And it doesn't help when the media is saying that you're lazy and that you don't care about basketball. Meanwhile, you're just trying to be happy, but they don't care about that. I've said this before, but I think these analysts rather have these players suffer so they have a storyline instead of them being okay. You see these players fail, it's on the headlines. However, if they got the story wrong, or if the players apologize, or we found out that that situation wasn't true, then you hear nothing about it and we just act like it didn't happen. I told a lot of people why I don't like the NBA media, and it's reasons like this, the fact that they're willing to try to push a narrative to take another person down. I'll say this again, they really don't care about you. As long as you're bringing in revenue and you're a hot topic to talk about, they're gonna keep talking about you. However, when you become irrelevant, they're gonna throw you away. Maybe you're not even irrelevant, maybe you're just going through struggles and you're going to instead be mocked and talked about in a bad connotation. So whether it's racism in the NBA or another man's death or using narratives to destroy players and human beings in general, that's why I don't like the NBA media. I started this channel with one mission and one mission only, and that was to discuss NBA content. It took up until 4 months ago when I finally learned of what was going on in the NBA media, and I stopped watching ESPN and I looked at basketball in a different perspective. Since then, I've gotten smarter at the game and I've actually started to appreciate players for their success instead of trying to look for a narrative to push them down. When I started uploading NBA content, the views were very low because I was doing what mainstream or everyone else was doing. However, it was around the 4-month period when I started to look at basketball a different perspective and I gave my thoughts about it. And that's why the channel has grown, and that's why my mission statement, as you could say, has changed. To put it simply, I want Spex Media to take over the NBA media. I don't want it to be biased. I want it to be us talking about basketball, pure and simple. Why are we having these former players or analysts in general just for them to lie about certain topics and for them to push narratives for views? Every take I've ever uploaded, I've stood by 100%. Even if the take changed, at the time I stood by it. You will never see me make a video about a take just to get views. That's absolutely stupid, and I don't think that's how you should grow your brand. As time goes on, more people are stepping away from watching ESPN because they don't like it because of the bias and the bullshit. Why can't we just enjoy basketball and talk about it like we used to? Instead, we get on the air and say anything just for a little bit of a Twitter or YouTube clip. It's not even about basketball anymore. At this point, it's just trying to get views and trying to get clout. And I understand you need views to have a growing business. As a content creator, I fully understand that. But a good 90% of the YouTubers that I know in the NBA community are standing by their takes. There's maybe 1 to 2 YouTubers that say some things that are out of pocket, but even they know it's out of pocket and they've been eviscerated for it. As time goes on, I want us YouTubers and basketball savvy people in general to take over sports media when it comes to basketball. I've had people call me crazy because I want to take over NBA media and I want to switch the narrative and make it instead about just pure basketball and not pushing agendas for my own personal gain. In fact, that's why I think a lot more YouTubers are getting a lot more views instead of these shows, because with a YouTuber, we know what they're saying and we have an ideology of what they're like. Most of them don't need to say stupid shit just to get views, at least in the NBA community. I would watch 30 NBA YouTubers before I even turn on ESPN to watch something about basketball. And with the unfortunate reality that they like to use people's deaths as narratives to push, or even using someone's race to push another narrative and things of that nature, I think you guys can finally understand why I wanted to make this documentary about the NBA media. As time goes on, the NBA media is gonna lose traction if we don't start having basketball be talked about in the way it should be talked about. You never know what's gonna happen to the NBA media in 10 years, but if there's a video that can push the narrative and switch it and try to start a movement, this is the video, this is the documentary right here. Because truthfully, it's fucking disgusting what the NBA media will do to push a narrative just for their own personal gain.